Hello and good morning. This is video 898. I'm going to record it without headphones, so I'm not sure how the audio will come out, or the video for that matter. Woo, can you see me? Woo. It is almost 8 o'clock in the morning on January 12th. Lots of rain here where I live. Um, but I'm under a nice blankie and I don't want to go get my headphones, so. We I don't know where to begin. um, my work has something similar to Facebook. If you're familiar with Microsoft Yammer, or I guess Microsoft Teams, used to be Yammer. But basically, Microsoft collaboration, social media, and I'm not going to say anything that's, I'm not going to give away any secrets. Uh, but much like Facebook, we'll just call it like Facebook. It's not a company secret. It's commercial available software. In fact, I think Teams pretty much comes with everything now. But um, there's a group, and much like Facebook, you can, connect to certain sites or groups. I may have mentioned this before. It's there's 2 or 3 Christian groups, and uh, one of my associates at work is really trying to kind of introduce some flexibility because I had talked to someone in another video about how I think some people are headed towards what I'm calling the Alamo. It's the last bit of resistance, and it probably has always been there. But I mean, it's where you know in our society, you know, growing up, take you out of it, just talk about me. But that doesn't mean I'm egotistical. It's just I know me best. Um, and even that's a stretch. Um, but I grew up in South Florida in the 70s, and people talked about the Cuban refugees. They talked about the Cubans, and then later the Haitians. If you had a problem, you blamed it on someone else. That's the whole scapegoat, I guess, mentality. Yeah, go Iceland. Uh, so maturity as you grow up, you kind of realize, well, I can't blame all my problems on someone who, I mean, hopefully, if you're mature, I can't blame my problem on a Haitian, okay, or a Cuban. I mean, they did nothing to me. It's silly to blame your problems that you're having on someone's national. Look at the lightning, someone's nationality, right? I mean, it's just you kind of like you reach a level of maturity. We hope. Uh, so, and I made mention of this too. My grandparents used to talk about the colored. That's why they said it too. The colored. Who do these colored people think they are? I mean, nowadays, terrible. So, you know, hopefully, maturity, you realize you can't blame your problems on someone else. You can't blame someone's ethnicity, where they come from. And granted, now from my grandparents' point of view, obviously they were Caucasian. Um, my grandfather's family came from Cuba. My grandmother's family came from the Bahamas. Okay, so I have kind of a Caribbean kind of heritage, but uh, once you get kind of to the United States, it's like hopefully, like I said, hopefully, knock on wood. We can't blame our problems on, but it's easy to have a scapegoat. Well, I think for the religious folks out there, quote unquote, I shouldn't really say that either. Um, for the people who kind of go to an organized religion that in the past maybe blame their problems on another group of people. Um, socially, you can't say. Um, I guess it'd be easier if we just came up with, if we made up a place. Um, let's look for inspiration. Oh, golly. Okay, here we go. A piece of Tupperware here. Actually, this is plastic. We'll call it plastic. Okay. The plastique. Depletions. We'll call it depletions. And if there is a group of people that are called depletions, this is just an example. You can't really walk around, oh, well, my problems are these depletions. Um, I'm sorry. Brain has gone up the word. I went off the track so much. I don't know if I can get back on it. Can't blame other people. Um, so maturity wise, you say, well, I can't. Well, then with religion, since religion is kind of like it's not really based in reality. It's kind of trying to explain the unexplainable, and you know, there are these people or this person that lives in the sky, and it's a guy. He's an invisible man who lives in the guy, and he came up with a set of rules. And if I do everything, I'm going to go live with the invisible man when I die. That's kind of like most. It's Christianity. Uh, but you take things you don't like, and you kind of attribute it to someone else. And I apologize for kind of going all over the avenue of consideration here as I drive along, um, running over foreclusions and everything, but all over the avenue of consideration. I think about my grandma who hated Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, just hated MLK. She hated him. And she always had a bad thing to say about him. And we're headed up to Martin Luther King Jr. Day, right? Coming up pretty soon in a week. So it's kind of timely. But I always think about her, and she had this negative. She's a sweet woman. I loved her. She was my grandma. But again, a whole generation of people, my grandma, my grandmother, they're from different parts of the country. It's not necessarily locally, geographically. They just hated black people. They hated the colored. That's what they would call them, the colored. So that's what I grew up in. And I realized, really, that's not fair. It's not right. So socially, you know, we come to the conclusion, hopefully, that you can't discriminate or treat people differently because of the color of their skin or where they came from. The Haitians in my life, um, you know. So what's left? Well, unfortunately for you and me, gay people, the gays. I've started to say that I, you know, it's to be modern is to say LGBTQ, right, or LGBTQI plus or whatever. But um, I found myself starting to say the gays in the same way that my grandparents said the colored, just to show how archaic and insane it is to do that. Um, just to show how the same stupidity is at force. Um, and I'm not gay, at least I don't think I am. Transgender woman, absolutely. I would love to know if I prefer guys over girls as far as sexual partners go. I haven't had the opportunity yet. Uh, Being 50 plus years old, I don't think I'm going to have a chance to find out because older trans women are, in my experience, sexual kryptonite with men. They don't want anything to do with us. Um, Where are we going with that? So I find myself kind of saying, when people are talking about, debating gay rights or whatever, I'm like, oh yeah, the gays are so, problematic. I don't know where I was going with this either. But so back at work, we have a philosophy that you can't. The system is only to be used to encourage conversation, to be polite, not to be divisive. We're going to come back to that in a minute. Not to drive people apart, not to create disharmony. And what I found is someone who I really don't like um, has taken that to mean that you can't say something that they don't believe in. In other words, uh, my friend online is trying to introduce into this Christian, quote unquote, Christian group, LGBT issues. That LGBT churches, in what do you call them? Inclusive, welcoming. We welcome everyone. You know, all of God's children are welcome to celebrate Jesus. Okay, inclusive. Um, and so my friend this week started to post news stories. Okay, about that we're not, trying to create a wedge or be divisive. Again, we're going to come back to that word, divisive. We have, but just an article about there was a Presbyterian church that has a bishop who's a Native American. Okay, and so the article was, First Baptist Church. Well, I don't know Baptist Church, but anyway, First United Church of Jeffersonville welcomes our new bishop. You know, uh, you know, Jake Running Water, who, and talk about his Native American, his ancestry, da 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 da, who he is, blah blah blah. Not to promote one thing or another, but just like an informational thing. And so my friend has kind of gone out of his way to find things that are, let's say, marginalized minorities, women, um, Native Americans, and gay, the gays, um, informational things that really are not confrontational, um, other than just by their existence alone. And what he's encountered is the Alamo. People are so bunkered into this last stand, they don't want to hear about it. And so when my friend posted something or about another one of the people at work posted something about the Mama Bear speaker speaking at their church. This other person immediately, oh, you're being divisive. You're being antagonistic. You're trying to drive a wedge. You're creating dissension. And I guess the point that I'm going to make, and probably poorly in this video, is that um, inclusion and diversity, maybe I should have started off with this. Inclusion and diversity is going to definitely be divisive. Back to that word again. It's going to be divisive to someone who is not open to inclusion and diversity. If you believe in the Bible, if you are familiar with the Bible, with the Christian Bible, I should say, uh, Jesus himself was called divisive. There were, at least in the mythology, scribes and Pharisees and whatnot who didn't like Jesus because he was creating a ruckus, right? You know, scribes and the Pharisees had the Torah and were like, no, we know better than you and we're going to follow this book and da 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 da. And Jesus was like, no, it's what God says, it's what's in your heart. Which to me, it's so ironic how the people in the Alamo making their last stand, um, they are the scribes and the Pharisees. You know what I mean? And like a person like my friend who's trying to interject humanity and love and caring for other people, he's Jesus. You know, I mean, it's a living example of uh, kind of what Jesus is was all about. Loving one another, forgiving each other, living with each other. Um, and it was the people who were so adamant on the law and the religion. They were always trying to, if you believe in it, that's the way I was raised as Catholic. You know, they were always trying to trick Jesus. And that's what we have. Like I said, I see is it an analogy? I see the same thing happening. You know, uh, and much like with my grandma, Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend King. He was divisive. Remember that word again. He was divisive. He was creating dissent. He was labeled, a bad influence. Da 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 da. So I guess maybe being labeled divisive maybe isn't a bad thing. But to the establishment, an idea that's foreign to that is going to be divisive. It's going to be uh, not destructive, but an element of change, right? I guess we're coalescing into a thought here. Um, so again, back to the idea of an Alamo. You know, I don't know how long we're going to be in this battle. You know, um, I was very optimistic, and then today's Thursday. The Yesterday was Wednesday. In the first 3 days of our new congressional Republican-led House of Representatives, in the first 3 days, they passed, or they didn't pass, but it's been introduced, um, two anti-woman bills, an anti-trans bill. Um, you know, the people that ran Republicans, they ran on the idea of crime. Well, we got to do something about crime. We got to, the border, very like safety and security. They played off people's fears. And then when they got to the position of power, they didn't address that. They didn't address crime. They didn't address, you know, the first thing they did was dissolve the House Ethics Committee. Why would you, of all the things you had to do, why would you disband the one thing that's going to investigate people who do bad things in Congress? You got to wonder. Uh, they attacked the IRS. I mean, it's like, and then they started to do stuff like we're going to find out what happened with COVID. And you're like, COVID. You know, they I guess I hate to say politicians. Promise say anything I have to say to get elected, and then once I get in, I get to do what I want. You know, and if you look at the makeup of Congress, the House right now, anyway, um, it's not representative of the United States. it's extremely white male Christian. It's not representative of the United States population, but yet people voted for it, right? But anyway, back to the idea of being divisive, and I guess the bigger point of all this is I saw a quote this morning that said something about, it was a meme, and it said something about, as an adult, you are responsible for your own triggers. The world is not going to tippy toe around your likes and dislikes. Um, which probably has a couple, you could take that a couple different ways, but back to the idea of this group at my work that is about inclusion and diversity, and by my friend posting an article about uh a woman priest or a gay this or Native American whatever. If someone has a knee jerk reaction that is, you're being divisive, you're being argumentative, you're creating trouble. um no, it's presenting information. um it's obviously a trigger, and as an adult, as a mature adult, um, we have to regulate that, And in this case, much like Jesus and Dr. King, um, we're, I want to say maybe they're anti-establishment. Is that a fair thing to say? Jesus was, in theory, and by the mythology, by the story, went into the temple and tossed over the tables, and Jesus made a whip out of grass, and you know Jesus was an element of change. He was divisive. You know, um, Dr. King was very, was it civil disobedience? You know, uh, I am not going to raise my. I'm not going to talk like I don't want to act like I'm parroting him, because I'm not. But I'm not here to fight you, but I'm here to exist. I'm going to sit at that counter. I'm going to ride that bus. I'm going to do this as a way, as civil disobedience, I guess, to show you how wrong the establishment is. And again, people at the time, oh, it's being divisive. So I don't know. I guess I saw some connections. Maybe I see them, but again, as we head into the last battle at the Alamo, uh, you know, unfortunately, you know, people are, we still have our struggle here, to be gay, or LGBTQIA, I should say. We still have a struggle happening right now. Obviously, I mean, again, 2023, people get in Congress and they immediately start passing laws against women and transgender. I mean, it blows my mind, you know. Um, but you know, we're kind of deadlocked to a certain degree for the next 2 years. Thank goodness the Senate. It's funny how, like, last year or 3 months ago, 6 months ago, the situation was kind of reversed. The House of Representatives would pass something like the Equality Act, and well, there's no chance that'll get through the Senate. The two bills against women, you know, they were talking about, it's a symbolic, or it's a message legislation to show that I voted for this bill against women, or whatever they called it, the Protecting the Babies Act. Um, you know, basically for the next 2 years. Um, like I said, the Republicans in the House are going to pander to their supposed base. I wonder how long it's going to take for us to just live in happiness with each other. I don't know. Maybe I sound like a hippie, but how long is that going to take? Um, but anyway, I don't know. I've kind of run out of steam, but I just wanted to, like I said, it's something I noticed about being divisive. When you meet somebody who, like this guy in this other group, who's like, you're not welcome here because you're being divisive, because you're being argumentative, because you're trying to sow dissent. Okay. Well, no, I'm here to share information and my experience. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, uh, you know. But if you feel threatened by me just existing, um, that might be an invitation for you to realize that maybe there's something going on with you. You know, I saw a quote, and it said something about every conservative accusation is a confession. In other words, uh, how many times do you see or do you read about a politician or a priest that was against it accused transgender or people as grooming or sex, something really horrible, and then 2 or 3 years later you find out, Congressman blah 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 was convicted today of charges of perjury or sex trafficking or having sex with a minor or pornography. Um, the idea that what you dislike or you accuse someone else of doing, you yourself are doing, that the things that you don't like in someone else is really your own, something in you that you don't really like. And so again, back to my friend posting about a woman priest and the people in the Christian group, you're being divisive. Maybe they're just showing up and holding up a mirror, and that person sees their own ugliness and shortcomings. I don't know. Food for thought. All right. Till next time. Bye bye.